Okay, let's dive into a topic that's difficult, for sure, but also incredibly important. We're going to talk about how we process sudden loss and how we find a way to heal, especially when we're haunted by all the words we never got to say. For an entire nation, this date is just seared into memory. It was the day of the Sewol ferry disaster in South Korea, a tragedy that sent shockwaves not just through the country, but really around the world. You see, the thing about the Sewol disaster is that it didn't just affect the families who were directly involved. It rattled everyone. Everyone who had ever experienced a sudden loss of their own. It just forced them to confront their own personal grief. So why is that? Why does a public tragedy have the power to reopen our most private wounds? Well, it's because sudden goodbyes, they don't just leave a scar. They create this deep wound that can stay open for years, sometimes even decades. It's like being frozen in that one single moment of pain. Let's look at two really powerful stories here. First, there's Seo Kwang. For over 20 years, he never, ever spoke about his infant daughter's death. He just buried the pain. But then the Seo tragedy happened, and it brought everything rushing back. Then there's Jihin. She was trapped by trauma, having these awful visions of the sister she lost so suddenly. Both of their stories show us how this unresolved grief can literally freeze us in time. And here's why that happens. The shock of a sudden farewell just leaves us completely defenseless. I mean, you're not prepared for it, right? So you can't really process what happened. And that can lead to years, even a whole lifetime of silent suffering. You know, to really understand the people who are left behind, it actually helps to listen to the final thoughts of those who are lost. What were their last words? What did they try to say in those final moments? When you look at the last messages that were sent by victims in huge tragedies like these, from 9/11 in the US to the Daegu subway fire and the Sewol ferry in Korea, you start to see this really profound and consistent pattern emerge in their final words. The first, and by far the most common message, is just a simple, powerful declaration of love. Mom, I love you. I love you, my friend. In the final moments, that seems to be the primary human instinct. The second thing they say is, I'm sorry. But here's the thing that'll stop you in your tracks. It's not sorrow for their own fate. It's almost always an apology for not having done more or loved more for the people they're leaving behind. Like, I'm sorry I couldn't be a better son to you. And the third message? It's a final, completely selfless wish. It's a plea for their loved ones not to live in sadness, but to somehow find a way to be happy, even after they're gone. But, and this is a huge but, for the people left behind, that feeling of I'm sorry takes on a much, much heavier and more painful meaning. It gets twisted from a message of love into this weapon of self-blame. And this is where you see this massive, absolutely heartbreaking disconnect. The survivor is just consumed by guilt, thinking, it's my fault, I should have done something. But the person they lost, they weren't thinking about blame at all. Their final thoughts were about love and about being sorry for not loving enough. And this guilt, it's not just a feeling, it's a really destructive force. It shows up as severe psychological distress. We're talking deep depression, panic attacks, those traumatic visions like Jihan had. It completely freezes a person's life in pain and just makes it feel impossible to move forward. So, how do we fix this? How do you bridge that devastating gap between the survivor's guilt and the departed's love? Well, it starts with a conversation, one that should have happened, but never did. There's this incredibly powerful therapeutic exercise that begins with this exact question. It gives the survivor a chance, finally, to give a voice to all the words they've held inside, sometimes for decades. And the apologies? They're almost always the same. They're apologies for a perceived failure, a failure to see the danger, a failure to protect them, to stop something that was probably unstoppable. Now, this next question, this is the turning point. This changes everything. After the survivor finally voices all their guilt, they're asked to shift their perspective. If the person they lost could actually hear them, what would they say back? And you know what? The answer is never blame. It's always forgiveness. It's understanding. It's love. When Seo Gong, that father who lost his infant daughter, was asked this, he just broke down crying and said his daughter would tell him, "Dad, it's okay." And that's it. That's the breakthrough. Realizing that the people we lose, they don't leave us with a burden of blame. They leave us with love. Their final thoughts were all about how much they loved you, not about anger or resentment over what happened. Really understanding this truth, letting it sink in, that's the key to healing. It lets us shift from living a life that honors our guilt to living a life that truly honors their memory and their love for us. So just think about this for a second. This is the final question. If the person you lost could see you right now, suffering under the weight of all this guilt and pain, what would they really truly want for you? The answer, of course, goes right back to their very last messages. They would want you to be happy. They'd want you to live a full life, one that's free from the pain that's holding you back. So this leaves us with two clear paths to healing. First, the most profound way to honor their love is to actually live out their final wish for your happiness. And second, we have to learn from the words left unsaid. Tell the people who are still in your life that you love them. Tell them today. Because in the end, grief doesn't have to be a life sentence of pain. It can be transformed into a powerful reason to embrace the life you still have, all in honor of the love that you'll never, ever lose.